and a warm welcome to Agric today on ARSN Television, Mabushi, Abuja, Nigeria. I am Khadija Oluwatoyin Amin. This week we shall take you through discussions and resolutions at a one-day roundtable meeting the Honorable Ministers of Agriculture had with stakeholders with the theme strengthening institutional capacities on the commodity value chain development through innovation. Speaking at the meeting, the Minister of State for Agriculture, Senator Sabi Abdullahi, who was represented, harped on the need to leverage on innovation as they say it is important for growth and development for the country in achieving food security.
We believe that innovation is very important for the growth and development of any organization. However, innovation requires resources, especially financial resources, which can often be a challenge for many ministries, departments, and agencies. This being the case, funds allocated to the department from the Ministry 2024 appropriation is inadequate to drive its innovative activities. Consequently, the department resorts to seeking for your technical and financial support. We believe that with your kind support, we can drive innovation initiative in the ministry to boost agriculture and achieve food security, as well as achieving the 17% sustainable development goals. Ladies and gentlemen, some of our initiative ideas have been developed into 6 priority areas intending to address challenges of post-harvest losses, inclusivity, lack of coordination among community of practice, skill gaps to drive research development and innovation in the sector, poor infrastructure to boost innovation activity, lack of viable platform for continuous harvest of innovation ideas, among others. Let me also add that the department will continue to deliver the much needed innovative solutions in the agri-food space by continuous engagement of staff of the ministry, research institutes, and colleges through the constituted Ministerial Innovation Committee. In this regard, we will continue to seek for your partnership. Once again, I wish to sincerely thank the chairperson, Advert, Agric Group, and chairperson of USAID of the Donor Group for coordinating and making this meeting a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in this meeting, and on behalf of the management, I wish to also thank members of the Agricultural Donor Working Group for committing their resources to host this meeting. Finally, I'm using this opportunity in soliciting for your continuous cooperation.
The key lecturer, while speaking, said there is a need for capacity building, mindset change, and togetherness to achieving the aim of the Ministerial Innovation Committee of the ministry.
Realization of this pronouncement of the head of service, sometimes March this year, Ministerial Innovation Committee was formed and inaugurated at Ministry of Agriculture level. So we are deriving some of our powers in doing what we are doing today from that particular committee. The committee was inaugurated, and you can see some keywords that are important. Those keywords come as part of their resolution and recommendation. The first one you can see there is FMAFS Innovation Portal. So meaning that we're supposed to actually have a coordinating portal for everything that has to do with innovation. And that is going to be linking us to some of the activities we want to do today. And then you will see the basis for that. Another thing is the mini innovation competition. For us to drive innovation, there must be some competition. You are going to see it as part of the program we are talking about today. There must be capacity building, because innovation thinking or innovation system thinking is not something that is just what anybody can pick up. there must be a deliberate effort to change the people, the way they think, the way they act, and they believe in what we are doing. And at the same time, it was cross-cutting. You can't have an innovation department or innovation division, and you say you are actually acting as a silo. Because you don't own the commodity value chain. The value chain are with other departments. So definitely, there must be that culture, and the capacity should be built. Agro-Innovate is actually looking at deployment of innovative solution across board. So in my group, we look at how do we innovate the space and bring in a lot of women and youth, and that's why we say we want to create challenge. And then we draw that from what the department said in their MIC recommendation, where they said there must be challenges. We need to challenge the youth to come on board. So our agreement is that yes, it's a very good idea, and the idea is not something that has not happened in other parts of the world. But what we have seen is that we have not seen it being focused. So our discussion actually look at the concept generally, and we agree on specific things. The first issue is that how do we disaggregate youth from the women? So many a time we said youth and women, and at the same time we have a challenge to actually disaggregate what women means, or we lump it together. Then the age that we have set out before was looking at maybe in Nigeria 18 to 45. My group said 35 UN, but we said Africa and Europe are not the same thing. So many conversations go on, but we agree at 40. You understand? So, but for the youth anyway, we said 18 to 35. So for us to accommodate women, we extend the age for women that will be participating to 40. So whatever that one means, I think that's going to be our adoption. So we are looking at a system whereby throughout the 1 year program that they are actually going to be embarking on, there's going to be evaluation at almost every quarter. The first one is to actually do their business ideation. So when they are actually coming up with with their plans, we expect them to come out with a business model. And if they are coming out with a business model, we need to actually check. And we're going to be working with enlisting mentors based on that specific sector. For example, if we want to do anything on dairy now, we want enlist people from ANA, from all these places, so that those youth are going to be guided specifically. And the catalyst fund we are looking at is going to be per milestone. So if you have not been able to build your business model, you cannot proceed to the next stage. So we are not giving you money, but you are looking at money. What is important, and my group love, was that there is an impact fund. Impact fund that they are looking at, which is going to be 5% of the total portfolio. So you're going to have access to that after 1 year of your successful being in that business. So, and everybody agreed, in terms of structure, it's not going to be owned by Ministry of Agriculture, but it's going to be housed somehow. So we are going to have an SPV, that is a special purpose vehicle, for those contributors and the funders that are going to support this to co-create a structure they want to see. The fund is not going to be in the Ministry of Agriculture, it's going to be in a special purpose account that is going to be managed by the funder themselves, but there will be endorsement of the department, there will be endorsement and involvement, and it's going to become like a national program. In first year, we are looking at 10,000. So when we say 10,000 ventures, that 10,000 venture that is owned by minimum of 3 individuals is going to give us about 30,000 impact of people that will have become a co-founder. At least they learn about business and they actually practice it. So if you look at the indirect impact, and then we have attachment of just 10 to a venture, then that will give us about 30 times 10, that's 300,000 impact we could actually do, direct and indirect employment. So, and if we do that for 4 years, that would have given us 1.2 million jobs that are voluntarily looking at people that want to play in that space. So again, we agree that all my partners in the group, we have agreed on our next line of action. In the next a week or two, we are actually going to have a follow-up meeting. So there's going to be a product paper that is going to be shared with them today, and that product paper, they will look at it and actually pitch it at their different organizations. I'm glad to have Canada on board. I'm glad to have Spain on board. I'm glad to have FAO on board, and I'm glad to add GIZ on board. So the four of us have actually agreed that we can co-create this and look at the success story of similar platforms across the world and look at the failure points and address them, and actually is a way to go. So our commitment, I have the commitment of the 4 partners already, and that is the kind of things that we want to actually go. So, but in essence, for us, is to actually walk through it, develop it, co-create it, and perfect it before we can say it becomes a project.
Other agri donors who spoke at the meeting pledged to continue to do all the necessary things in making sure Nigeria attains food sustainability drive. Let's hear from them.
In the current context marked by growing challenges for the food system, innovations are critical to fully harness the opportunity to boost agricultural productivity, enhance food and nutrition security, boost income for smallholder farmers and rural entrepreneurs, including women and youth. Allow me to quote here IFAD President Mr. Lario, who indicated, and I quote, "We must never stop making an impact for those who need it the most." And it is for that reason that we are constantly innovating. This message was sent by President Lario during the 47th Governing Council of IFAD, which was focused on innovating for a food-secure world. In line with the narrative and the 8-point agenda of the government, IFAD, like many other development partners, invest through our joint value chain and livelihood program with the government and our farmer organization to foster innovation, inclusion of women and youth in rural entrepreneurship, boost digital technologies, and promote value chain financing, and at the same time, enhance climate-smart agriculture. IFAD, through our policy engagement, we were highly privileged to support the government of Nigeria in showcasing on the global platform of the Food System Summit in Rome, innovating financing for food system transformation. We are also highly privileged to continue to work with the Ministry of Agriculture on innovation through digital solution. We appreciate the leadership of the ministry, which through the department, the Direction of Planning and Policy Coordination, has been supporting us in organizing strategic activities on how to scale up digital solution for smallholder farmers. From this engagement on innovation, we learned a few lessons that I would like to share with you. First, partnership is critical, and it goes beyond the ministerial department. It should be interministerial. It also should encompass private sector, and I want to say, I will not skip that, farmer organization. Yes. Very important to have the farmers at the center, and of course, development partners. That's the first thing we learned from all this engagement on digital innovation, where we had the Director of Planning and Policy Coordination leading us, and the Director of Project Coordination Unit supporting us. Second lesson we learned is we need to build on what exists. So for the first ICT4D forum, we convey many partners, and many of them are in the room here. FAO, USAID, AFD, GIZ, to name a few, JICA, many partners are here. We also, private sector, come to present what they are doing. And then we discovered there were EU, of course, African Development Bank. There were many initiatives to promote digital solution. So we have to build from what exists. Third lesson we learned there is the fragmentation. Sometimes we are doing the same thing, and We don't know exactly how to draw lessons from others. So that fragmentation is actually a waste of resource. And as we know, the needs are really immense. So how do we do things in a more coordinated manner? Third, just to highlight some policies. There are many policies that exist. The main challenge is how to implement them in a coordinated manner. We really want to salute the leadership of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. When we started this work, they were really open to bringing on board NIDSTA, the National Information and Technology Development Agency, which had also a digital agricultural strategy. So it's good to open the arm and bring everybody on board to strengthen implementation of policy. The NATIP, of course, is a huge and a very strategic platform to boost innovation. But we have different policies. How do we bring all those policies together and harness the strategic pathways that are crystallized in these policies? And just to say for our farmers, we were very privileged when we did the digital innovation, first digital innovation policy workshop under the leadership of the Director of Planning, where they have actually asked us to bring the farmers so that we hear the voice directly. We had about 20 farmers who had a small workshop there and share with us what they want as solution, what can work for them. Of course, we were not able to, I'm not sure we are able to satisfy all the wants. One of them was the government should subsidize the phone, the smartphone, for all the farmers of Nigeria. I'm not sure. So, innovation is also a risky job because you hear a lot and we are not sure you can deliver. So, not sure that if I could deliver fully on the expectation of this workshop, but we are here to bring our small, modest contribution. I want to thank the Agricultural Donor Working Group for the work that is being done and salute the leadership of Jasmine and Kofi.
How can value chains contribute to food security and other development outcomes? In the end, that's the way that we want to select value chains based on evidence. To what extent can value chains contribute to development outcomes? We put other development outcomes because, as we have heard today, there was the Declaration on Food Security, and so the President and policymakers are looking to agriculture to meet that goal, right? But agriculture has always been asked to do more. Nutrition, jobs, now that the economy is to diversify, also economic growth. And so how can value chains, various value chains, contribute to these development outcomes? Next slide, please. This analysis is actually in 4 parts, looking at the structure of Nigeria's agri-food system, decomposing into various value chains, looking at the growth over a period of time from 2009 to 2019, based on the social accounting matrix for Nigeria for 2018. And the final part, looking at future drivers of inclusive agricultural transformation. So even though I'm from Ghana, I've highlighted in the Nigerian color of green, because that's our focus for today. So you are only going to hear about that 4th part, future drivers of inclusive ag transformation. And at some other point, we can discuss the other ones. Next slide, please. This is the table listing all of the different value chains that were part of the analysis. I'm not going to go through them, because obviously that will take too much time. But you can see it's a whole long list of value chain groups on the left, and on the right side, you have the actual individual products that go into each one. If you take root crops, for example, that's one value chain group somewhere in the middle there. And it's made up of cassava, Irish potatoes, and others. The numbers there are their share of Ag GDP plus, which is their share of their contribution to the agri-food system economy overall. So not just agriculture, but Ag GDP, which includes inputs and other aspects of the entire food value chain. The various contributions of each of these value chain groups to the Ag GDP. So you can break down the system, and each of these numbers is showing the share of the contribution of that value chain. Now, in this table, you don't need to focus too much on the numbers. What you should focus on is the different colors, because this breaks it down into 3 different groups. We have exportable crops, such as cashew. I think so you're talking about cashew, right? An export crop. We have importable, which means those crops for which you have above average import demand ratios, right? So the import, the share of the crop that's demanded is really high in terms of the import share. So rice is a typical example, and other cereals. And then in the last part, we have the less traded value chains. That's the rest. After you take out the exportable, those with high export to output ratios, importable, high input demand ratios, then you have the less traded. So the story from this table is that if you promote some of the importable value chains, the ones in the middle, rice, right, other cereals, other crops that are importable, and also you promote some of the less traded, right, such as cattle and dairy, then you are going to be able to boost both the agri-food system productivity and also off-farm employment. Because as you can see, some of these have very high shares in Ag GDP. So this is about the contributions and trade orientation of the different value chains. You'll see that over the 10 years that we looked at, 2009, 2019, the average annual growth rate for each of these crops, again, it has the same split in three groups: exportable, importable, and less traded. And so overall, one of the things that we see here is there was modest growth over the period. I think that's not a surprise to all the people in this room, because we work in this sector. We know that there hasn't been much growth over this period. And one thing that's important to note is that some of the commodities that have high growth rates above 5% are in the importable and the less traded groups, right? Which means that if you have some investments to make and you make them in these groups, you can still see some of these becoming exportable. I think Kofi was talking about ginger, and others talking about ginger, for example, right? You can see some of these becoming exportable. Describes the kind of analysis that leads to the next one that we are going to look at, the next slide you are going to see. What we do there is we look at each of these value chains and say, if you are going to improve the value chain, improve productivity in the value chain, what kind of outcomes will we see? And this is where we come to the research question I showed at the beginning. How can value chains contribute to development outcomes? The outcomes are listed here: poverty, hunger, diet quality, jobs, and GDP, economic growth. So in the next slide, you will see that each of these value chains makes a certain contribution. If you have a change in Ag GDP within each of these value chains, they make a certain contribution to the development outcomes. They are listed here in the order I mentioned: poverty, hunger, diet quality, jobs, GDP. So just to take a couple of examples. On the first one, you can see that if you have a change in the cattle and dairy sector, right, it leads to a change in the percentage point of poverty of negative 0.69. And that is higher. Cattle and dairy has the highest change in terms of poverty among all of the value chains. If you take another example, the one right here at the bottom, rice, which I mentioned as an importable for which Nigeria could pursue import substitution. If you make an improvement in the rice value chain, it has not as much decrease in poverty. In fact, it actually increases poverty slightly because of the distribution effects. But if you look all the way towards the right, it has some major impacts on jobs, right? Rice is the one that has the most impact on jobs. It's also the one that has the most impact in terms of GDP, economic growth. So each of these value chains, since we have been given the opportunity by Dr. Mustafa to have some reprioritization, right, discussion of the value chains, I think we can look at some of this evidence and think about the different value chains. The message here is not that one value chain is better than the other. When I was sitting at the table, I was mentioning to Dr. Ayuel from USAID that the thing is that if you have a different goal, depending on the development partner, depending on the government's interest, you may want to invest in certain value chains.
That's the size of our package for this week on Agric Today. Please don't forget to turn on your notification button on YouTube for more educating episodes. I am Khadija Oluwatoyin Amin saying bye for now.